We thank you for the dawn of another day. We thank you, O God, for all your gifts that you have bestowed on us so freely and willingly, undeserving of them as we are. We thank you, dear Father, for today and for the inspiration that you have breathed into R.A.R.E, who herself is a victim of a violent crime. We ask, O Lord, that you continue to bless her and that you will empower her here in this part of your vineyard to work together with young people. Father God, as she seeks to help them in their awareness of her project R.A.R.E, which is the ripple effect for gun violence. Lord, it is not to promote violence as much as it is to foster a spirit of peace. You are the Prince of Peace. Peace that they could take back to their schools, to their homes, to their communities, that they will empower other young people. Lord God, you never chased away young people. In fact, you invited them to come unto you. And as we embrace the young people here this morning, we trust that you will open their minds, that they will go forward, and that they will help to restore this once peaceful nation to some semblance of what it used to be. We ask that you will bless every school represented here, every home, every family, that you will encourage the elder ones to be good mentors to the younger ones. Lord God, we entrust this whole program into your hand because it is a project that you have sowed the seed and that you will help to water and bring forth the harvest. We thank you. We invite your presence here this morning. Enrich what the speakers have to say and bless them all as they share their expertise. We thank you for them, Lord God, and it is with thanksgiving that we pray. Amen. Now we continue to invite you to stand for the national anthem. Thank you, and you may. Well, I said good morning already, so let me formally welcome you here to San Fernando. For those of you who are from the north and southeastern and wherever you are, we warmly welcome you here. The crowd seems small, but I think, like most of us, they are caught up in traffic. So I want to introduce you to the person who will take you through this morning's proceedings. He is an award-winning journalist, a newspaper columnist, a media trainer, and press freedom advocate. He has trained journalists throughout the Caribbean and Fiji and presented papers and led discussions on media development and the press freedom in Europe, the United States, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. He also lived and worked in Guyana, Jamaica, and St. Lucia. So I guess we could say he is international. Mr. Gibbons, Mr. Wesley Gibbons, has also contributed to journalism manuals on media coverage of elections, climate change, and the rights of the child. He is also author of 4 collections of poems. Well, I just learned that. So without further ado, let me invite Mr. Wesley Gibbons to the podium.
This morning, I feel a little bit like back in 1971, 72, Queen's Royal College, where some gray-haired guy with glasses and a potbelly would stand up in front of us and pretend to know what we were going through. And I remember sitting in the audience at the time, audiences of events like this, and thinking, well, no morning class. I hope this thing goes on a little longer so that we go straight into lunch. And I also thought that, well, what does this short glasses guy with gray hair know about what I am going through? Because certainly, if he went through what I am going through now, it would have been a very long time ago and he won't remember. You know what? At that time, I think I was right. Because we can never know. And I think particularly in the current age, people from my generation really will never know precisely what you're going through. One of the things that I do is I train media professionals, journalists. And a point that I continue to make is that in my generation of journalism and media, we use what we call analog technology. Any of the youngsters here know what I mean by analog technology? Analog technology would be akin to using tape. So when I did radio, for example, we recorded all our material on tape. And in order to edit this tape, we used to have to get a razor blade and cut the tape, and you use a little piece of adhesive to join the tape. Now, how many of you edit video and or audio on your phones? Anybody here knows how to do that? To put on Instagram, right? Look, this lady here, yes, you know, right? You don't use any razor blade or tape. And that means the technology you're using is digital technology. And one of the things that the digital technology does is it allows you to operate or to occupy different spaces at the same time. Those of us who remember Channel 2 when it first came on in 1962 would know that you had one channel and you could look at one show at one time. And if you missed the beginning of the show, that was it. That was the end of it. Now with digital technology, because you're occupying both the present, the past, and you can actually anticipate what is to come next. Through digital, you're able to transcend all these dimensions, which means that your generation is operating in a dimension that we could never have thought about. So it's true if you're sitting there thinking, well, what do these old people know about what I'm going through? We really occupy a slightly different space. But what remains constant, though, are some of the principles of life and some of the things that distinguish young people from the older folk. Now, in thinking what I would sort of say in opening this morning, I spoke to my son. He just happens to be the greatest child in the world. It just turned out that way. I don't think I'm so special, but he is the greatest son in the world. And I said, Mikhail, if you had to use one word to describe what is happening to young people nowadays, what would that word be? You know what word he came up with? And I'm sure it might be, he's closer to your age, even though you think you're a big man, all right? Well, he's 22. What word? Weird. Well, this is something close to weird. You know what he came up with? Fear. He said fear. And maybe it's peculiar to his lifestyle and the fact that he's a very energetic guy, he's in the film, he's in the music, he's a composer, and he produces his own music and so on. And he said, fear. And I remember at that time, going back to 1970s, when I was at school at Queen's Royal College, which happens to be the best school in the world, with all due respect, sir. I going to QRC, fear was also a part of what we underwent. Because back in 1970, those of you who do a little bit of history would remember, in 1970 we had our, what we call Black Power Revolution, or uprising. And some of us who operated in that Port of Spain environment, I didn't live there, but I went to school there, would understand what I mean by fear being a part of their life. The other thing that was very peculiar at the time, and I think exists now, is that there's a certain amount of confusion about the mixed messages we got from adults. Hypocrisy was all over. You know, the older folk, they'd come and preach to you about something, and then when you look at their own personal conduct, they're doing something else. So there's this little confusion, and the psychologists call it cognitive dissonance, a kind of big word to mean that, well, you know, things are happening to us and we don't quite understand it because I thought the short guy with the gray hair told me this is how we are supposed to be conducting our lives. Look at him now. Look at what he has done. Look what he is doing. And if you follow media, you would see that our lives are just sort of deluged by instances in which people who have come and said one thing have gone on to do something else. But that all of it is on the downside. And I'm sure that there are two features that you will only recognize when you grow out of the current phase, which is that as young people, you are capable of delivering great joy. You're capable of delivering joy in a way that those of us who have been hardened by experience and disappointments and so are incapable of delivering. So I spend a lot of time around children. People want to know, if you look at my Facebook page, yes, I'm on Facebook. Old fogies are on Facebook too. And yes, I know young people are getting away from Facebook by going on Instagram. I'm on Instagram too. So don't feel you're getting away. And they're children, you know, one of the neighborhood children, and my colleague who is from Guyana at the back there would know that one of the most frequent photographs you see is one of our neighborhood babies who I've known from a very young child. And what she brings, I don't see any adult in my life, my professional and personal, bringing that level of joy. The other thing that I think that young people are capable of delivering, that many of us, because I mean, you reach a certain age and you know that that older folks have their limits. The other thing that they bring is hope. And when Karen came to me and I saw in the program that hope, this has to do with hope, there was no hesitation. And I say, if you're talking about hope and you're talking about it with young people, that is a perfect prescription for moving forward. Because young people are capable more than anybody else of delivering hope. People who know me in my media training setting, I am a great believer in the next generation. I don't fall for this lost generation nonsense people talk about. Oh, the young people, nowadays, boy, I don't know where we go in. I don't operate so at all. I look at life, look at the current generation of journalists, young journalists. Rough around the edges, yes. They could probably be a little bit more polite. They could probably be a little more respectful. But they're bold-faced and daring. And they're thinking digitally. They're not thinking in linear terms only, where, you know, life is like this straight line and 1 + 1 must mean 2. If you're thinking digitally, you're thinking about ones and zeros and algorithms and formulae that we never thought were possible before. So hope is this big attribute, this big feature that young people bring. So I'm extremely hopeful about the past. But one of the things that we need to do as our generation is to give young people a chance. And I don't think that in our society, the way it's run, the way it's made up right now, that we give young people enough of a chance. So, and that's our fault. That's not your fault. That's what we have to do as our generation. And as young people, what you need to do is to start insisting that you are granted this space. One of the credentials that was read out about me there is that we have done work at the level of my organization, which is the Association of Caribbean Media Workers, in promoting awareness of the rights of the child. Young people have rights. Children have rights. And people sort of are very dismissive about the rights of the child, but I think that that's one of these things that as young people, as young advocates for people of your generation, you need to stand up much more strongly about your right as a human being. So that's my little spiel. I didn't come here to talk all morning, but I'll say I love young people. I see in them great joy. I see in them great hope for the future. And this exercise, I think, is designed to extract from all that is going on around us. I'm a journalist, and I write news. I follow a lot of the world events. I follow a lot of events that are happening in Trinidad and Tobago and in the region, and there is a lot to be unhappy about. It's a pretty grim situation out there. And as I said, common to our generation, as a result of what's happening, there's a lot of fear. And one of the things that we can do as people who have traveled that path before is to help you to overcome the more negative aspects of the fear. Fear is not necessarily an entirely negative attribute. If you read the life of Nelson Mandela, he would say that, being brave is not having an absence of fear. It is the ability to manage that fear and to turn that fear into something positive, because fear would bring a certain awareness of your reality. So don't be down if you feel sometimes fearful about things around you or fearful about the future, because it can be used as a positive attribute to bring life skills. And you're going to be hearing more about that during the course of the program. Now, I didn't follow the protocol by acknowledging some of the people in the audience, but I want to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Mohammed, who is a CBT counselor from Transforming Treasures. Dr. Mohammed, very nice meeting you, and very good to be here. We have members of the Trinidad and Tobago Association for the Improvement of Mental Health. Of course, I want to welcome the teachers and staff of the various schools participating, members of the San Fernando City Corporation, the acting sergeant of the San Fernando City Police. I think if he has any duties to undertake, it would only be with respect to my behavior, because I think we are a good group otherwise. School social workers who are here. And I'm going to be sharing the moderating honors with a very special lady who was a little surprised that I knew about her, but there's Google, and of course I follow the news, so I do know of Mrs. Rosalind Elias, who's an educator who has worked at all levels of the education system. She has had the opportunity to work in 4 of the country's 7, the island's 7 education districts, and she retired as a school supervisor 3. She lectured at Corinth Teachers College, the University of the West Indies, and R.A.R.E Tech. And on retiring from the Ministry of Education, worked on contract as a program manager of the retraining program YTEP Limited. She claims to be now fully retired, but we know better than that. But because she gives a lot of her time and services to various organizations. So with that, I want us to move into the substantive program now by inviting the Deputy Mayor of San Fernando, who is, has graciously, she is gracing us with her presence, the Honorable Alderman Vidya Mangal Bisesa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibbons, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to meet you. I've read your articles many times. It's a pleasure and an honor. I'm not gracing you with my presence. I want to correct you there. I'm one of those women who I don't know how to be coy. I can be diplomatic, but I don't think I'm gracing you with my presence. I am especially honored to be here in your presence, all of you young people. And I'm going to depart from the usual protocols and formalities as well, because I don't think this forum really deserves it. It's not that type of forum. I want to commend Karen. I've known Karen a long time. She was a year ahead of me at Naparima Girls High School, who are not present today. And yes, Aliyah, I went there. And we were at university together as well. And for doing this, for rising like a phoenix out of the ashes, for finding that purpose in the fair, as Mr. Gibbons was just talking about to you. And you'll hear her story later on, so I won't go any further than that. But I also want to commend the teachers, the principals, and the students of the schools that are present. And I'm going to say it. And welcome to our media personnel who are here. And I suspect it will make a soundbite somewhere. I hope it makes a soundbite somewhere. Because people need to get their priorities straight. Every day we read the newspaper, we look at the television news, and we hear about perpetrators and victims of gun violence who are younger and younger every day. Every one of us, including all of you young people, by the, you know the term 6 degrees of separation? You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. So we have all been touched by gun violence. Some of us closer than others, some of us a little further apart, but there's always somebody we know who knows somebody who knows somebody who's been touched by gun violence. And this soundbite, I'm hoping, will show up many places, is when, no disrespect, but when we had the Chronics concert, which was a great thing for San Fernando and through this corporation, but this auditorium was filled and overflowing with students from various schools. Their principals, their teachers, their parents all signed off on them coming to see a Jamaican artist. Yes, he does conscious music, and yes, it's great to see a celebrity. But something like this, and we've got empty chairs. Too many. But I'll tell you what, Karen, as my PHI4, Mrs. Hernandez, said to me while we were sitting there, and I got her permission to use her words. If only one of you students had showed up here today, this is a success. This is a success. Because one of you may be the ones that we need to reach, that we need to touch, who, if not personally, but can spread the word to someone else who needs this information and this sense of purpose and this discussion. And if we start it, it can only get better and bigger. Only get better and bigger. So, enough of the serious talk. For all of you young people, I disagree with him a little bit, you know. Some of us, even though, yes, I do have some of the gray hairs, not as much as him, and I am in his age bracket somewhere, maybe on the lower end of his age bracket, but in his age bracket. Some of us have not forgotten, huh? We remember what it was like to be teenagers. Yes, the pressures may seem to be different, but when you break it down, it's about the same thing. We have the same issues. Peer pressure, self-esteem, our own self-image, boys for the girls and girls for the boys. That's a definite fact. Body image. Am I going to pass my exams? All the fun things I want to do that the adults won't let me do. And don't they just understand? They can't just leave me alone. I just need to breathe. You all are laughing, did I? Is it true? And all the little sneaky things that we think we are so creative and we've come up with all these new ideas to beat the system and get around our parents and our teachers. And man, I got studied with that before, and if I just do the summary in each paragraph, I'll be good for it. Hello, been there, done that. There is nothing that you guys can come up with on your own that we haven't thought of before. And all the teachers and parents are nodding their heads because they know it's true. But thanks again for coming, guys. I thank the principals, I thank the teachers, but most especially, I think this happened for a reason, Karen. You were directed. There's always a greater purpose behind. And Mr. Gibbons, thank you for gracing us with your presence. And one day, you and I will be sitting in the back of the auditorium, and one of these young people will be up here in front of this microphone telling us all about and what to do. I look forward to the rest of the program. Enjoy. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, one little omission which is in your packets, and I don't want you to open it while Ms. R.A.R.E is here, but there's a survey, and remember that at some stage during the proceedings that you need to complete it and to hand it over to the person who is going to be receiving it. So I want to move straight into the one of the more important items on the agenda, which is a presentation by Ms. Karen R.A.R.E, Beyond the Bullet, a Survivor's Story. Karen, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'd just like to make a little adjustment there. The survey, I'd like if we take a few minutes to fill out that survey now, and I'll ask a few people to pass around and collect it as you're finished. When you're finished, just show by raising your hand, please, particularly the young persons. Now, if there are any questions there that you're uncomfortable with or you don't wish to answer, feel free to leave them out. Your names don't have to go anywhere on that paper. Against protocol with everything today, so I'll go against it too. So while you are finishing up your surveys, I'll just very briefly mention what Project R.A.R.E is about, although I will talk about it a little more in the story as well. So you are here this morning because Project R.A.R.E, which is raising awareness on the ripple effect of gun violence, has initiated a program. It's a crime prevention program. And this program really is about educating young people. And it's educating not just through talking down to you all. So it's along the lines that Mr. Gibbons would have mentioned to you, that he felt that children need to have a greater input into their future. And that's part of what Project R.A.R.E is seeking to do. So yes, we'll be talking to you a lot today, but then you will have a chance in the program, as you would see in that section called discussion, you will all have a chance to say something. So don't let us down. We're giving you a chance. You don't usually get it. Take it. All right? So is there anybody else still writing? I would like to give you the opportunity to hear everything. So the story I'm about to share with you is a story that starts with a bang. A bang that is reminiscent of fireworks. But it's a bang that, when the dust had settled, left me bloody, bleeding from my face, my chest, and shoulder, because that was a bang of gun violence. I was attacked by bandits in a robbery attempt in 2013, and I can remember the date very clearly. It was Tuesday, the 29th of January, 2013, 20 days after one of my many birthdays. Can't tell you all which one. And just a day before my elder brother's birthday. So he got quite a terrible birthday present, and it's something that will be remembered every single year. So what happened was that I just went for a drive casually, and these bandits were on that evening seeking a getaway car. And they came upon my car that was temporarily stopped at a minor road before going onto a major road. I don't know if you young people know about stopping at the minor roads, but you will learn. And if you don't know it, well, you'll be in a little trouble. So we had stopped at this minor road, and the car was suddenly surrounded by, and I don't know how many, but there were bandits on both sides of the car. And I realized that something was wrong, and I was going to move because I thought they were going to hit the car glass with a piece of wood. And the sound I heard, I thought that they broke the glass with the wood. But in truth and in fact, it was that they had fired a bullet. I don't even know what type of gun it was, but it was very, very loud. And right away, well, you know what happened. My chin was completely blown away. So you are seeing a chin today, but the chin, well, I shouldn't say completely, it was hanging by a thread, but it was blown away. And of course, I was shot in the shoulder and chest as well on the right-hand side. And fortunately, I wasn't driving, someone else was driving, so they were able to speed away. But even as we sped away, the bandits continued shooting. So it wasn't enough that they had already damaged somebody, but because they didn't get what they wanted, they continued shooting, hoping that they would either blow up the car or stop the car. I don't know what was their purpose, but they continued shooting. And one of the bullets was actually very close to the gas tank. So if they had gotten that, well, you know what would have happened. So the reason why I'm sharing this story with you is because Project R.A.R.E, as I told you, is about raising awareness on the ripple effect of gun violence. So what I want to do with you is I want to share a little bit with you some of the ripple effects. And the ripple effects include physical violence, financial problems, setbacks, and emotional setbacks. How many of you, when you read a story in the paper or you look at it on the news and you hear about somebody being shot, that's it? That's what you think about, oh my, poor person, that person is shot, or you feel sorry for their family, you know, they have lost a family member, maybe a breadwinner, but it doesn't really go much beyond that. And it was the same for me. I don't think it went beyond that for me either. But until somebody tells us something, sometimes we are not aware of it. So that's why I feel the need to share. So you've heard what had happened. There I was with my chin blown off, chest and shoulder bleeding. I had lost about 50% of my blood, maybe less, before I got to the hospital. And by the time I got to the hospital, I actually was just about to go into thermal shock. But being the stubborn, hard-headed person that I tend to be, as you get older, that happens, and I don't know, you young people who look like that. But as you get to my age and you're hard-headed and you're stubborn, I got out and I walked into the emergency room and everybody was shocked. They could not believe that this person who had lost so much blood with that type of injury was still walking, refusing to take a wheelchair or to be lifted in or anything. And so I went in. And at hospital, immediately they had to do emergency surgery, which would have included cleaning up all of the shrapnel, because what I didn't share with you was when it happened, I had put my face to my hand because, you know, girls, you especially might understand, we women tend to be a little vain. So I had put my face to my hand to see what was really going on, and it was scary. I just felt all these things sticking out of my face. I didn't know that the chin wasn't there. And so in the emergency surgery, apart from trying to put things back in place, they cut off the chin, they just tried to grab everything and sew it together like a sack. But before they could do that, they had to remove as much splinters as they possibly could. So for those of you who don't know, when a bullet travels from the point of being fired to its target, we imagine it as, well, I always did. I don't know if you're probably smarter than I am, but I imagine it traveling in a straight line and going directly at its target, which it does. But a bullet does something called yawing, Y-A-W-I-N-G, and I'm telling you that for a purpose. You're going to hear it in the other segment as well. So yawing simply means that instead of going directly like this, the bullet travels and it wavers like that. But it still goes in a straight line, but it goes like that. And when the bullet travels, the major impact from the bullet is from the kinetic energy. You all know what kinetic energy is? What is kinetic energy? Somebody, some brave person. Right in front, Jemima? No. Well, kinetic energy simply means the energy of motion, and I know all you know that, but you just don't want to answer. So the energy that the bullet possesses when it travels through the air and before it hits its target, that energy is transferred to its target. And that is what causes the majority of the damage. So that bullet that night hit into my face, and when it exploded, it transferred all of its energy into the face, which caused everything to shatter. And apart from that, the energy that travels doesn't not just the things that receive damaged, but there's the ripple effect that transfers, and it could go as far as the brain. So once you get hit in your upper area, it shakes up the brain as well. So if I say something wrong, that's the reason. It's not because I forgot, right? It's just because I got shot, so you know, it affected the brain a little bit. So that's one of the things one of the effects of gun violence in terms of the physical effect. After the surgery, what happened was that I was connected to every possible piece of medical apparatus that you could think about. You know what an orifice is? An orifice is an opening. And in almost every opening, I had a tube, and they actually had to create an extra orifice to put in a tube right here. And that tube was put in to make sure that my tongue didn't slip down and choke me, because part of my tongue was damaged as well. And also to make sure that I could breathe. The thing is, after about 3 weeks after that injury, I couldn't speak at all. I couldn't talk. And for about 9 months after that injury, here, this part, I don't know how many of you could deal with this part, I could not eat anything for 9 months after the surgery. Of course, I could drink. I wouldn't claim to be like other individuals who, who didn't eat and drink for very extended periods of time. So I drank all my food, and I'll share one little experience. When you get on board, just wink your eye at me and I'll shorten the story. But people say, well, you know what, blend your food and eat it now. Because I never liked blending, but I had to end up blending. And there was one day we had a Thanksgiving service, and we had curry everything, chicken, goat, mango, whatever, pumpkin, dal, nice paratha and dal puri. And everybody else was eating. So I wanted to eat too, and I take a little bit of everything and blend it up and drink it down. And it tasted all right, but I don't think I'll do that again unless I really have to in this lifetime. So eating was difficult, was not possible for 9 months. And after having the jaws were also broken. So what was left of the jaws were broken. And guess what? while at the hospital, before I left, they still had to break back the jaws, reset it, and then rewire the jaws shut. And after that, then I would go into reconstructive surgery to try to get back some semblance of a human face, a normal-looking face. And I'll tell you, to not make the story too long, I'll just tell you that it had to be rebroken a second time and rewired a second time before eventually having reconstruction. So, because I couldn't eat, I had lost a lot of weight, so I went down to about 80 pounds, right, which is very small for an adult. So I was at 80 pounds, very weak, still with blood building back up, unable to speak for 3 weeks. I got back my voice after a while, and my brothers were very upset when I got back my voice, because then I started talking. They couldn't shut me up after that. And some of you all might be thinking the same thing this morning. And so all these things happened. I had to undergo reconstructive surgery, got back my face, was not working for, Mr. Tam could tell you all. After it happened, I was unable to go back to work. Actually, I never went back out to work. But we thought it was going to be just about 6 months to a year for the most, and it just continued, and I just never went back out to work. So that's a little bit about the physical in my case. There are other cases where the physical effect could be, of course, fatality, death. And then there are cases where you could suffer with loss of a limb. Or maybe your hearing could become impaired, or maybe it was in your eyes that you got shot, so maybe you can't see. So there are so many different physical effects from gun violence. But the effect that most people don't think about is the financial effect. And there's a massive financial effect associated with gun violence. In my case, the first part of my treatment was at the public hospitals. So your parents, Mr. Gibbings, the deputy mayor, and everybody else who pays taxes, they paid for my surgery. But when I had to do the reconstructive surgery, I had to do that privately. Massive bill. All my life savings went into that. And as a single parent, teacher, it wasn't very much life savings, but it was still a heavy cost. So that's like obvious too, because you would expect that somebody who had an injury would have to pay for medical assistance. But what you don't think about is the fact that at the public hospital, even though taxpayers are paying it, somebody is paying a price. You're not thinking about the fact that here is a person who is not otherwise going to be at hospital, taking up a bed space that somebody else who is critically ill might need. And I occupied the best bed on the ward because I was in the worst condition, so they had me right where everybody could see me. And I took up a space that somebody else would have probably needed more than I did, considering that I was there by force. And in addition to that, there was a massive cost for, I can't begin to tell you the amount of people who attended to me. I had x-rays, the x-ray equipment brought up to the ward that I was on, because I couldn't go down to the x-ray department. That in itself is a cost. They had to transport me out of the hospital to go to do something called a panoramic, I can't remember the full name, but a panoramic x-ray of the mouth. So I had to go to another institution, and the hospital footed that bill. I had to go and do CT scans. They footed that bill as well. So those are things that people don't think about. And then there are the other effects in terms of finances, where my family had to step in now. I wasn't working any longer. I no longer had a salary. My family now had to step in and pay any other bills, whether it's medical, whether it's light bill, whether it's mortgage payments, whatever bills that I had to pay, somebody else had to take up that slack now. So you get a little idea of the financial effect. And then there is the massive psychological and emotional effects that go along with any type of trauma. and that came with this gun violence. And one of the biggest factors for me, boys, hear this. If you're like football, right, and somebody just come to you and tell you that you cannot play football again ever in your life for some reason, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel lost. You're going to not know what to do with yourself again. What if somebody took away your phone and you can't play the games that you're playing all the time? What you would do? And that was a position I was left in at the tender age of, I'm not going to say it, just 5 years ago. I was left in a position where I had been a teacher for 22 years, and now all of a sudden, I am no longer a teacher. I am afraid to go back into the system. I don't want to talk in front of people, and now I'm talking in front of you all. How do you think that made me feel? How do you think, I'm talking about the girls now, but I know that the boys are vain as well. Imagine if somebody take a big stone and pelt you and they hit you on your face. And you have to go to a party or whatever bazaar, whatever it is you all go to. And you have to go to that the next day. You don't want to go because you don't like how you're looking. In fact, it don't even have to be something so extreme. You could get a little pimple on your face and you're not going out. So here I was dealing with a totally different look, not having my profession, not knowing who I am. So one of the things that happened was that I started to slip into depression, and I was diagnosed with something called post-traumatic stress disorder. Fortunately, I had the, I don't want to use the word wisdom because that'll make it sound as though I'm wise, but I'm not really wise. But I did go and seek help, and I was able to overcome that. And that's really that brings us to the point that Project R.A.R.E is really about. It's about taking all those negative things. Yes, we must be about them. We must know about them. We must know the bad things that could happen. But we have to be able to take the lessons from those bad things and turn them into something that is good. And that is what happened. Somewhere along the line, there was what I now call a spiritual renewal. So that out of all those bad things that happened, I realized that, you know what? I'm still alive. And I now have a powerful story that I could use to help other people. And I realized that the young people, because young people have always been my passion. Mr. Tam could tell you that as well. I love working with young people, and our young people need guidance. And we see that every single day. So that Project R.A.R.E was born out of that desire to share what had happened in the interest of being able to promote something better. And if you look at the banner that I have up there, you will see there were originally supposed to be 2 colors. The third color was added just for interest. But there's red and there's blue. And the red represents the violence. And you know, things always work in opposites, boy, like, girl, etc. So red and blue are like opposites. The red is the violence, and the blue represents peace. And that's where Project R.A.R.E comes in. So out of all this bad that happened, about a year after, I was able to put pen to paper and come out with my first book. And this is not about self-promotion, but this is about showing you all that regardless of what happens to you, you can do whatever it is your purpose is, one, and anything that you want to do. There is nothing that you are not capable of doing regardless of your circumstances. So I wrote that first book, and then came a second, and then came a third. And I'm going to mention this to you because Jemima is going to do something for you all just now, and this is part of it. And for you to understand it, you need to know this. The first book was called From Lion to Lamb. The second book was called Gently Powerful Prayers. The third book was called Bounce Back Better. And out of those books, I started speaking. It's difficult because whenever I speak, it takes a toll on me emotionally. I started speaking. I was actually invited to Miami to speak at a Christian Chamber of Commerce meeting. And out of that came the idea about Project R.A.R.E. And when Project R.A.R.E. started, I started doing community services with the help of Dr. Mohammed and Transforming Treasures. And here, the best part of it for me so far, the highlight has been that little old me, who before 1988 to 2014 had never traveled, I was invited to speak at a conference on resilience in South Africa, in Cape Town, South Africa. So something bad happened, and I could sit down and just wallow in pity and, why this had to happen to me. Or I could do what I did. I took it and I turned it around. And that is not because of my own personal strength. I always say it's because of the grace of God that I was able to do it. And that's another one of the lessons I wanted to remember. Through faith, we could do anything. So that basically is my story. You will have a chance later on, if there are any questions anybody want to ask, you will have a chance to ask questions. So what I will do, could I go straight into? So what I will do is I will introduce to you our next performer. This is a young student, and it was so significant that she comes from the school that I used to teach at, which is San Fernando Central Secondary. I don't like that name. I call them ModSec. So Jemima Doyle is a Form 2 student, right? So all of you all are Form 4s, but she's a Form 2 student, and she's going to do a special presentation on a poem called Pain Shattered. Let's give her a round of applause, please.
Good morning. This piece is entitled Pain Shattered. Pain, the silence of the night, shattered. Pain, car window, shattered. Pain, face, shattered. Blood flowing like a busted wassermain, shattered. Picking up pieces of glass, picking out portions of metal. She is left picking up the pieces of her life, shattered. One bullet sped through the night, no eyes but with sight, straight at its target. It spins, it yaws, hitting and exploding the victim's jaws, shattered. Like a stone thrown in water, it forms rings of energy, emanating outward, expanding, far-reaching, penetrating. The bullet hits its target, pushing live tissues aside, like a bully battering those in his way. Bones, muscles, nerves, and teeth shattered. Energy radiating, reaching beyond the victim, the family to society. Rippling, it shakes the brain. It takes a toll physically, emotionally, financially. Life changes for one, for many. Staying in red, left for dead. Seeing the tunnel, the light. Not giving up, floating like a kite. Drifting a sea, high on morphine. Can't speak, can't eat, growing lean. When through the fog, the mental fog, blazing a way forward, the grace of God reaches down to mortal depths, pulls her out of the stress. From a crystalline, then shining splendor, brightly colored hues of the rainbow, a promise of tomorrow. The table turns, the lion burns, the lamb returns. She bounces back better, writing to God a letter, gently powerful prayers for those who did the shooting. Forgiveness breaking down prison walls, not for the villain, but the victim set free. Empathy, compassion, humility, viewing life respectfully, pain shattered.
Round of applause for that. Really fantastic. I can tell you, you write poetry yourself? You don't. Very, very well done. And thank you very much for that. I hope people listen carefully to the words, because what we want to do is to incorporate some of those thoughts that came through the poem in our discussion. I want to invite back to the front Karen Asgarali, who's going to talk to us about practicing peace and nonviolence. That's okay, Karen, we don't mind you.
Okay, so this time I'll be probably reading more than talking, but it's all here somewhere. It's just that after that talk, I don't think I will remember everything. So today, as I told you, part of our purpose is to highlight the principles of peace and nonviolence. And we are doing that because we want to open discussion with young people about things that we can do to combat violence and to have a more peaceful society. And I want to start with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., and that's significant. I'll tell you why, because today is his birthday. It's also the third Monday in January, which is celebrated as Martin Luther King's Day in the States, and they get a public holiday for it. Some of the schools and civil services, they get a public holiday for that. So the quote is, "Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars." And hear this part: hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And you know, when you say love, young people think only about one kind of love. But when I say love, I mean love for everybody, right? So what kind of person could believe and live by the principles in that quotation? He's calling on us to love everybody. Can we do that? That's very difficult. We mightn't be able to do it all the time, but we could try to do it. So what that statement does is it helps us to envision a future that is immaculately landscaped with peace, and in which our hurts can be transformed by and into hope. It's telling us that we mustn't fight fire with fire, because we know if we nurture fire, if we give it more fuel, it's going to burn brighter. So if you give violence more violence, it's going to become even more violent. So we want to smother that, and the best way to smother it is with love and peace. So everywhere we go in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is just saying what our deputy mayor said, the hottest topic is our levels of crime. The number of murders, the number of incidents of gun violence, it makes us afraid, which is what Mr. Gibbings was saying. It makes us wonder what this former paradise, Trinidad is. I don't know if it is still or if it was a paradise. I still think of it as a paradise. I know it's there somewhere. We just have to get it. We have to pull it out, extract it, nurture it. And we have this paradise, but it makes us wonder what it has come to. And yet, when we look at people, I'm not even talking about criminals now, I'm talking about the average person. We look around at each other, and I'm not discounting myself from this. When we look at each other, we see intolerance, we see agitation, easy frustration. I was getting frustrated this morning when people weren't turning up, right? So I'm telling you about it. I'm guilty of it too, but I'm always trying to improve on it. And that's all we could ask that people could do. We are humans, we are imperfect. So things must be our way, and it must be our way right away, or else someone else is going to pay. Someone is going to be told off or screamed at or chopped or beaten or shot at if we don't get our way. That's how we are. That's how we have become, right? We're trying to fight it all the time. That's what young people are doing. That's what we are doing here. But we are gradually all becoming that way. So simply sharing with you how much pain one act of gun violence or one act of any criminal violence can cause is good. And it is good so that you can have a big understanding of how actions have consequences that are seen and that are unseen, some that are immediate and some that are long-term. But we need to go beyond understanding and suffering. We need to go beyond understanding the sufferings of a victim, a family, a community, or a society. We need to put into practice principles and take actions that can help to foster peace and nonviolence instead of violence. Every positive action taken to ease the burden of the victims, primary or secondary or tertiary, or as our deputy mayor put it, the 6th degree, I think he called it, right? So we have, by extension, so many other people are involved. It becomes important then for us to feel their pain and to be able to take action against that pain. So I'm going to share with you some principles of peace. I'll not be long because what I did was I put those principles in your folders. You don't have to open them now. But I put them in there so that you can read them at your leisure. The point of me being here is just to point that out to you, that we want to be able to practice peace every day. And you know, when people say that, it sounds like some kind of airy, fairy thing that, you know, you aspire to, but you will never ever reach it. But you know, practicing peace is as simple as, and I'll say this, I'll apologize to my mother. The person who said the prayer this morning, that's my mother. I'll apologize to her because I was getting a little upset this morning when I was looking for her. She actually went to do something good. She went to get a cup of coffee for a poor, hungry soul. And I was getting frustrated, and when she came up, I was like, yeah, but we're going to start. So I'm going, that's an act of peace right there. I'm apologizing publicly to my mother for that. You didn't know I did it, but I'm still apologizing. So it's as simple as doing that. Yes, you're going to fail. We're human. We're going to fail sometimes. But the point is that when we fail, we recognize that we failed, and then we try to take corrective action, right? Of course, we don't want to fail, but if we do, we have to take some sort of action and make up for it. Peace could be as simple as, you don't talk to your neighbor. Go and talk to your neighbor, right? Your neighbor might be harsh, they might watch your heart, whatever. Go and talk to your neighbor. What's so hard in stopping by the bakery and getting a nice little cupcake and taking it, say, good afternoon, here's a cupcake for you. Do it. Simple little acts. So you will see all kinds of nice things on the paper, on the handout about things for peace, but peace can be practiced in everyday, simple little acts. So it's a lot for you to absorb when you read it, and I'm not going into any more details. I'm just going on now to establishing the principles of nonviolence. And nonviolence and peace are slightly different. Peace is about, you know, not just harmony. Peace is about people having things that they need to, you know, you're making sure you meet whatever needs they have physically, emotionally, otherwise. And nonviolence is about recognizing that there is injustice, not standing for that injustice, standing up against it, but not violently. So nobody's telling you to just roll over and pretend it didn't happen and to be a weakling. In fact, it takes more courage to stand up against violence in any form without retaliating with violence. It takes more courage to be non-violent than it takes to be violent. And when this had happened to me, just to go off a little bit, I had said this and I still stand by it. I am sure those persons who shot me could not take what I took and go through and come out the way that I came out. I came out smiling. I smiled right through because I always knew that I had to keep that happy outlook so that the people who had to look after me wouldn't be pulled down, that they will have the strength and the courage to be able to look after me. That wasn't the only reason, right? But that was one of the reasons. So courage does not need to have a weapon in its hand. Right? I want you all to remember that, go away with that at least. Courage doesn't need a weapon. Courage comes from the heart. It comes from having faith. It comes most of all from something that you're not going to think I'm going to say now, but it comes from having very strong support networks. I never really thought of myself as a courageous person. People have told me that. I've never thought about myself as a strong person. But people like Mr. Tam and his colleagues, they have told me that. And now when I think about it, I still don't think of myself as a strong person. But I know that I can do things that strong people do because I have the support of good people in my life. People like my family, people like my colleagues, people like, I'll call names because I like to, like Mrs. East, who is the vice principal at Convent, who has been very supportive of this mission. Like Mr. Wesley Gibbings, who didn't hesitate. This is not a vote of thanks, but you have to tell these people. Mr. Wesley Gibbings, who didn't hesitate. Our deputy mayor, who went way above and beyond to support this venture. And to all of you who are here, if I didn't have you all here, there could be no program. So the strength is not my own. The strength comes from having all these things in place. So going back to the topic now, right? We were talking about the principles of nonviolence. You also have some of that in your handout. And there's just one main point I want to read out for you all, right? So Martin Luther King Jr. said that nonviolence is the love that does justice. It is an orientation that unleashes creativity, connectedness, and compassion. It is a way of life and a means of transforming the world. Nonviolence is an alternative to either weak submission to wrongs or violent reactions against wrongs. When something goes wrong, we tend to react. We either accept the unjust situation passively or get angry and respond violently, and both reactions result in negativity. Nonviolence, on the other hand, starts from a point of love. So we come back to that point of love. It starts with a basic sense of what is wrong and what is right. And part of that is why Project R.A.R.E. started, because our young people, we take it for granted that you all know what is wrong and what is right, but that is not always true. And we don't always remember to tell you all, and that's part of the reason we are here today, partly to tell you and partly to hear what you have to say about it. So even in the struggle for human dignity, for so-called equality, we must not compromise and become bitter or act in hatred. We must acknowledge the evil or wrong that is done, but we must not attack the person who is doing the wrong. Sometimes people are not even aware that what they are doing is wrong. And I'm not only talking about criminals here. Sometimes the criminals know what they're doing wrong, but for whatever reason, they can't help it. Maybe they have become part of a gang. And once you're part of a gang, then you have to abide by the gang rules. And we have seen, I'm sure you all read the papers and you know what's happening. When people try to get away from that, they have dire consequences attached to it. So the thing is, we don't accept what they're doing as right, but in correcting people, we do not belittle them. We don't make them feel that they are unimportant, that they don't matter, that they are less than they really are. And it sounds idealistic, but what can be solved by harboring hate? If we harbor hate, will the situation change? Can the wrongdoer be encouraged to change if you keep hating them? Will you be able to go and tell them and encourage them to do the right thing? No, because you have so much hatred that you can't. So, just to remind you that nonviolence is not for the weak-hearted. It requires patient persistence and endurance. It opposes wrongdoing just as vigorously as those who display violence. It is physically passive, but spiritually strong and active. I'll leave you with some questions that will take us into the discussion. What choice are you going to make? Are you willing to be a part of the solution to create a more peaceful and non-violent landscape for Trinidad and Tobago? Thank you.
Very much. Quite a lot for us to think about there, and it's going to be reflected in our discussion in a very short while. Before we go into the discussion, we're going to take in a song by Mrs. Catalina Nurse. The song is Ceasefire. Mrs. Nurse.
Testing. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today to support Karen, and I will be doing Ceasefire, which is her theme song. It was the first time that I actually heard her story, and I was really moved and touched by her courage. And I trust that this song would resonate in your heart, and when you hear it, when you think of it, you remember the courageous little lady who refused to give in even at that moment of that tragic experience and walked herself into the hospital. That is amazing. All right, here we go. Thank you. A little more volume will be nice, but too much.
How do we save a life? Pointing fingers. How can we end the fight this way? When blame is the truth we're preaching, and the lies are what we're believing, no one ever changes when the goal is to settle the score. Ceasefire. One by one we would fight for a better end. One by one we would rewrite the headlines, standing side by side. One by one love is building an empire. One by one reaching out to our enemies. One by one we can make it to the finish line, standing side by side. Ceasefire. I will be the first to say I'm far from perfect, but grace was made for those who don't deserve it. So easy to cast the first stone, much harder to search your own soul. No one ever wins when the goal is to settle the score. One by one we would call for a ceasefire. One by one we would fight for a better end. One by one we can make it to the head. Yes, standing side by side. One by one love is building an empire. One by one reaching out to our enemies. One by one we will make it to the finish line, standing side by side. Ceasefire. Teach us how to live humbly, love unconditionally, transform our hurts into hope, and grant us your peace. Teach us how to live humbly, love unconditionally, transform our hurt into hope, and grant us your peace.
Ceasefire.
Mrs. Elias to come up in front and to help with moderating the discussion. I don't mind walking around with this, and perhaps you can take control of that microphone. Very, very nice song by you, and great rendition.
Oh
I wish we
yes,
could have done
oh yes.
an encore.
We should have it again sometime before it ends. So beautifully rendered, so inspirational, so heart touching. There, I don't think we'll ever forget that rendition. So yes, this is supposed to be a sort of informal part, Wesley. Very informal. Relax a bit. Relax your shoulders. Smile a little more after listening to that song. Such hope is in that song. So, and we want to hear your voices. You have a voice. You have voices, and we want to hear you. We want to hear, what has resonated with you here in this session. What kind of thoughts you are thinking, perhaps. What you will share with others. What you will go back to your schools and tell someone as you return to school today. What you might reflect on. So we want to hear your voice this morning. And we are so happy to have the Deputy Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor with us. And we would remember her speech as well, her greetings, all the representatives from the various institutions who are here with us, Ministry of Education, Social Development, Mr. Clifton is here, members of the media, and of course, you students, the most important persons here this morning.
And a recurrent theme that we heard through Ms. Asghar-Ali's presentation and through the song is that this whole matter of peace and non-violence are not passive things. These are things that some effort, something needs to be done. So perhaps in the discussion, how we can probably kick it off is to find out from people what do they think they need to do.
Yes.
So, if you don't raise your hand and identify yourself, I have the microphone.
Yes, he has the mic.
I will come straight to you. Just tell me your name and tell me what you feel about what you've heard, and focus on what you think you as an individual can do to promote greater peace and to ensure that there's non-violence in your space, at school, at home, your community. So this guy here is going to lead us off.
Hello, good day. My name is Jacob George.
Yes.
What I've learned here today is that you can't battle violence with violence. I'm trying to. The thing that, as me personally, I would try is try to control myself when I get angry. So I can't preach what I doesn't do. So that's what I've learned. Thank you.
Yes. Somebody else?
Thank you very much.
How you felt about the session and what you think you can do? Yes.
Anybody else? When
Let's get a rep from each school for this question.
Right, yes. It reminded me of the old saying by Mahatma Gandhi. He said, the old dictum of an eye for an eye. He said, if you operate by an eye for an eye, you'll end up with everybody being blind. You ever thought about that? This young lady here.
Your name is important. Come up, don't be shy.
Yeah. I'm a journalist, but this is off the record. Right? Nobody's going to report you in the papers.
My name is Maya Nana, and I'm from San Fernando Central Secondary School.
Good.
And my thoughts for today is always to forgive people, because without forgiveness, where would the world be today? And you know, you should be kind to one another.
So forgiveness.
Good, good.
And forgiveness
Yes,
requires some doing. It's not something that's passive. You just sit down and the forgiving is a passive thing that you haven't done, right? So this young lady here.
Good morning. My name is Carisha. I'm from St. Joseph's Convent, and well, my friend and I, we were talking about it, and we think that everyone should put aside their pride and will say sorry once in a while, admit that you're wrong, to avoid having all the arguments and stuff.
So far, Wesley, we've had our friend here, he said he would try to control his anger if ever it comes to him. That way he feels he can promote some peace. We had here forgiveness, promoting forgiveness, and we have pride. Dealing with pride, self-pride, which is very important. All those things so far. 3 really good points. And let's hear what the next school has to say.
These brothers here. Now, let me see who are the biggest mouth. No, well, not him. Good thing. Good thing.
Well, Amani. My name is Amani, and I go to Asia Boys College. Well, I think the way to control crime, crime, gun violence, is like have more activities for the youths, so they'll be more preoccupied.
Good.
So, I mean, and that is expressed in engaging in positive behavior. So you'd realize that certain things we take for granted, and we consider to be pastimes and entertainment, many of them have very positive attributes. And so what you're really talking about is engaging young people, not only as adults engaging young people, but young people taking the initiative of doing things. Because there are new activities, there are new ways of getting engaged that young people can take advantage of. Now you look as if you have an idea, a thought that you want to add to that. Before I leave this corner here.
Good morning. My name is Kudi Lala. I really do have no other thought to say, but all I learned from here is that the effects that people go through when gun violence take place, very, 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 very bad.
And yes, Wesley, he has just introduced another question that I was going to pose to the group. He just introduced it. From the survivor's story. We heard a survivor's story. And I'm sure you know people who perhaps, went through something like this. From her story, what touched you the most? The entire story perhaps touched you. But what in that story touched you the most? Let's hear you.
Good day, everyone. So, in Mrs. Karen's story, what touched me the most was all the hurts that happened. Because it wasn't only you that got hurt, but it was also the family. So, yeah, that touched me.
Oh, yes. The hurts experienced by all concerned. Yes? Anybody else? Wesley? He started it.
He started by saying, I don't have anything to say. But it's a very, very important point.
Yes.
Thinking about consequences.
Yeah.
What are the consequences of my actions?
Somebody else probably had something that touched you the most.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Makila Marshall, and what touched me the most was her ability to still walk, even though she was, like she lost so much blood, and she was, at first she kind of smally. So, and even though she was able to walk, I find that was so, because I would be on ground crying and things like that. Really, but like her ability to still stand up and say, well, I am a female and I am strong, and I will make it through this. That was very touching to me.
Yes.
The word there is determination.
Yes.
Determination. She is a little lady. I'm not too sure, the condition I would have been in terms of being able to respond and tell myself. And this lady here has something on her mind.
See, Mr. Gibbons is perceptive,
Good morning. My name is Chelsea Fernando. What touched me the most in the story is the fact that she had the will to fight through what she went through and still come back knowing that she can do anything and she can get through.
She can come back. There is some statement, I remember some school I went to, and it's a primary school, and the motto of that school is, the will does it. And as you mentioned the will, I remember that motto from that school, the will does it. And some other poet said so beautifully, nothing is impossible, the willingness is all. You like that? Let's say it together. Nothing is impossible, the willingness is all. Let me hear it again, louder. Nothing is possible, and Karen had that will. Let us. Yeah, ask your spokesman. Come on.
Hi, good morning. I'm Masood Ali from the Asha Boys College, and what I wanted to state is that through that fatal incident that took place, it was very, touching to be in that situation and in that state. And one point that I want to point out is that we should always be looking at our surroundings and make sure that it is safe. And where people you line with or the people you associate yourselves with, make sure that they are, safe and so on. Thanks.
Very good. Vigilance. And the vigilance point is not only looking out and ensuring that people are safe, but sometimes being vigilant about your friends and your school partners, their state of being. Sometimes we don't pay enough attention to what might be going on in each other's lives, and we don't pick up the little danger signals. Because it's not only in terms of being a victim, but in terms of being a perpetrator. People are going through things, and in society these days, I find we don't spend enough time paying attention to each other's conditions. And so,
can
teachers can speak, right?
Of course, of course.
Well, you've heard my name before, about 3 times I think. I'm Mr. Tam. Now, I don't think that I am indeed only teacher at Mount Second. Several of us as well, Alicia, Tracy, a number of us, we feel the same way. And Karen was quite right what she said in terms of how we feel about the kind of experience that she went through. Karen was a light to us. I'll tell you what I took out of what she said there. Karen is somebody who does not believe in this terrible thing has happened to me, so therefore I just wallow in self-pity. She has never been somebody like that. She has never been somebody to just feel sad and depressed and just say, okay, I'm just going to stay right here. She has always been somebody who has picked herself up and gone ahead and did whatever had to be done. There was something I read just last week where I think it went like you don't question God as to why He allows things to happen to you, but you take the good out of it and you move on. And I think Karen has done that, and Karen has set that kind of example for the rest of us. I tell you something, Karen, what you don't know. As a student, when I was 22 years old, I was held up by a gunman in Jamaica.
Oh my.
And I think that the only thing that saved me was the fact that he couldn't understand what I was saying and I couldn't understand what he was saying. right? But it was an experience that left me both upset. I was sad, I was upset, but I was also confused as well as the gunman. But I took the good out of it. God was with me. And God, just like you, has also led us to take that bad experience and then move on and do good things with it. I think that we need more people like that in our society rather than more police and more army and more checks. And we need more people to set that kind of example. More people who are either victims or more people who are reformed aggressors. If you can find them, to come and speak to our children, because it's going to take time for this problem to be solved. And it's going to take time for Trinidad and Tobago to return to that Trinidad and Tobago that, well, some of the older ones here knew, where I lived in the heart of San Fernando, and in the early 70s, you could have slept with the door open. You could have slept with the windows open. Some of you know what I'm talking about. But it'll take time for us to get back to that kind of Trinidad where you can feel safe and happy living with fellow Trinidadians, with fellow Trinidadians and Tobagonians. Thank you very much, Karen, for all that you're doing.
Hear some other adult voices at this time. Yes. Maybe what comment would you like? Oh, there is Mr. Feroz is like, and then we'll come to somebody else. Yeah, let's hear what you have to say about what has we been talking about. What are your comments? What are your views?
Pleasant good morning to all. On behalf of the Ministry of Education, Victoria Education District, I bring greetings on behalf of all of the Education Ministry. I want to thank Ms. R.A.R.E for the invitation, and in whatever way we can to partner with her so that we can send that message to the schools. We welcome any discussion, Ms. R.A.R.E. In terms of what would have touched me most this morning, I think I love that courage that Ms. R.A.R.E display and continue to display in terms of being able to go through that terrible event and still be able to retell it. It takes a lot. And something is wrong with our society in terms of when teachers are attacked. Alright, and the bandits did not know it was a teacher. So it also shows that no one is immune to gun violence and crime on the whole. But as teachers and educators, we have an important role to play. And I don't think any incident related to crime will daunt us. I was going to say should not daunt us, but I will say will not daunt us. Because the students who attended this morning and the teachers who have brought them shows that we still have persons who believe that things can change around in Trinidad and Tobago and it starts in the school system. Because the bandits who would have committed the crime were students just like you at one point in time. But they did not understand the message. Alright, so I want to thank Mr. R.A.R.E and the foundation, Ms. Elias, who I would have known for many, many years. Thank you again for the invitation, and I wish the organization much success in the future. Thank you.
I'm also a pastor of some young children out in Las Cuevas. My husband and I are of the firm belief that it is within us all the capacity to do good. Just recently, two young men were, sparking off on each other, and I saw and I understood the potential for violence. What I saw was that they did not understand who they were. They had no idea their own capacity, their potential. They didn't fully understand themselves. I got involved in the situation and began to speak peace to it. I was respected enough that the young men backed off, but I walked away with the impression that they do not understand who they are. Young people like Mr. Gibbons
Yes.
was saying earlier, you have the most amazing capacity for hope. We, the older ones, we look at you and we see generations to come. In your faces, all of you, sad, angry, depressed, busy on the phone, all of you have this amazing strength within you to be the very best you that you could ever be. You have it. Just like your own race. Some of us are Indians, some of us are Negroes. You don't have to try to be an Indian, you don't have to try to be a Negro, you just are, right? Even though you don't really feel it, you are. The same way, the capacity to love, to forgive, to walk away, to walk into a situation and speak peace to it, aggressively loving in that moment, you have that capacity and strength. Don't lose it, don't deny it, embrace it, because it's really you and who you are, and our future rests heavily upon you.
Thank you very much for that.
Any other, yes?
You know, my husband says a microphone and me is a dangerous competition. I just want it. But I just wanted to say something really briefly. And yes, I'm standing in the back because I want the kids to turn around. We've heard a lot today, and even I have spoken about you are a future, you have so much, you represent hope, Mr. Gibbons talked about it, Pastor just did and all of that. But I want to say something else. You have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders. Because yes, we are here to provide and give to you as much support as we can. But you have to be responsible for you. I don't know what you think about that. Boys, I'm so happy to see some young men here in the street of God. Although girls can be as violent as or worse. But you have a choice, and I'm curious to hear how you feel about that choice. Because I have seen it before, and I've had reason to talk to kids before and ask two young ladies in a fight and end up in the police station, and somebody called me. And I'm asking, well, was she hold my shirt just so and rip my shirt? Was I just supposed to take that? And the young lady could not, in her mind, rationalize why she was taking. Something was done to her unfairly, wrongfully. She didn't look for anything. What may have been a verbal spat and then somebody attacked her and ripped her shirt. Why she shouldn't cuff the other person? Yeah? You all go through that in school all the time, I would assume. Yes? No? Somebody says something, some of you are nodding, because somebody says something and somebody says something else and you react. And it's like, but I didn't do them anything. You have a responsibility to stop and think of consequences. Do you do that, boys? Not enough.
Honest.
The fact that you acknowledge that you don't do it, or you don't do it enough, is the first step. Young ladies, do you do that? Do you stop and think, or do you just react? Be honest. This is a place to be honest. You just react most of the time. So, my thing to you is you have the responsibility for you.
Yes, yes.
Think about it. Think about the consequences. And that's what everything is. From the smallest little thing. You know, I say to parents, when I speak to adults all the time, and I'm asked to speak a lot, I say to them, I said, every time you run a red traffic light, even if there's nobody around with your child in the car, or even if they're not in the car, you are the reason for crime and wrongdoing. Do you get what I mean by that?
Yes.
So every time a nice pen that somebody has that you wish you had fall out of their bag and you pick it up easy and put it in your bag and say nothing, are the reasoning. So if you want to be the right reasoning, you start small. Small steps. Small steps. I just wanted to say that to them. I hope they got it and I hope they take it and think about it.
Yes.
Thank you very much for that.
Definitely. Consequence. Sometimes say anything. You have to think about how it will affect others, how it will affect you. And Hollis wants to share a story with us, and I know that is going to be a very important story. So listen.
Morning all. I have been a teacher for most of my life. I have taught in different parts of the world. School. I am now a video journalist. A lot of the stories you see on TV, they come from that camera. TV6, a lot of stories in the newspaper, they come from that camera. I use that camera to shoot. I shoot people with the camera. But the reality check is, on 2 occasions, I saw guns pointing at me. On 1 occasion, I had some men working on my house. They were in fact fixing a gate, you know, the sliding gate. And I heard a commotion outside. I stepped inside. I didn't take it out, right? But as I was coming back out, not knowing what took place, I walk up to the guys, and then 2 young guys were there, and one of them showed me a gun. He said, "Hey, you, go back inside." I froze. It sounds like Karen's story, right? A gun. On another occasion, I was going to pick up my daughter. She was at UWI campus. I had to go and bring her back home. And it was raining. And I offered a job to some guys, 2 guys. And when they reached a certain point, they said to me, well, one was in the back and one was in front. I have a gun here. Give me the keys. Reality check. So my first instinct is not to give them the keys. So I stopped, took all the keys, and I started running like mad. But it was wet, right? And I'm on the way, trying to make my great escape. I'm shouting to people, bandits, bandits, call the police, call the police. So somebody started to run because I was running and hearing bandits. So I was running behind that person. They know where to go. So I ran into somebody's yard and it was wet. So I fell. The next thing, one of the guys came to me. And the other guy, they were communicating. They took the key. It was in my pocket, right? But poor fellas, when they tried to start the car, it wouldn't start because the remote had fallen off. So when they realized they were wasting their time, I had glasses on it, and I was on the ground, just flat out. And this guy pointing a gun at me. So when they realized they were going to get nowhere, he forced a kick on me. My glasses fell. So they made the escape. So I came out and I walked back to the car, and I was able to make a phone call and call home. Tell my folks what happened so they could come and pick me up. Right? So Karen, you're not alone, right? So 2 episodes where I saw gun in my face. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
We have to start wrapping up.
Yes, and
we're going to give the opportunity to your 2 students. Just what are their takeaways from all of the
And you can add in that, I had written down here, we'll be going back. I remember a few years ago, the Pope had declared the year of peace sometime. We're talking a lot about peace here and forgiveness and so on. And yes, when you go back to your school, what project you think you could initiate in your school? You may not think about it too clearly here yet, but is there a project you could initiate in your school to promote peace and love and forgiveness? Tell us, would you be strong enough to go back and get a teacher to tell your idea to, and to a project to do this term or during this year, where you can promote peace and love and forgiveness? Let's hear you.
What?
Yes. Some things. Yeah, you could finalize it later on, but let us get an idea. What do you think you could do in your school?
Well, my name is Tarik Lambut, and I'm partner from Central. One project that we could start is awareness group.
Yes.
I think it would really help to help our project and everything, because children really know about the animal company, and everybody when you ask them we project and not actually go back and tell them we really about, and maybe we start time and just with help out with the project.
Yes. Very nice. You know what he said?
Excellent.
Get together an awareness group. And that is so great. Mr. Tam, you have a job, eh?
So like we come to the convent, and like I'm sure that all schools have talented people. So like whether you're a musician, an artist, or something like that, you can like create a program just like today, and you can have like multiple events right here probably to raise awareness. Thank you.
Yes, lovely. And we have to get what those boys down there want to say, 3 schools represented here. Come on. Let's say when you go back to school. Oh, 4 schools. Yes. 4 schools. Yes. Let's see.
Okay, morning. My name is Jabez. Well, what I'm thinking is, okay, so the main point of crime or gun violence. So like last election it had before when UNC was in power. Okay, so like there would be barely much crime, right? But since this government came in, there would have been a little more crime. And what I was saying, the root of the problem would be that the population around maybe, okay, so like see how hard the drastic unemployment rate. So people would have been more idle, people would have been wanting more income. So that's where the root of the problem would have been started, and people would have been robbing, killing with guns to make money. And what I think we could do is try to, so people who will be going into politics, maybe make a change for the youth, this is the younger generation coming up, and we could probably make a change in the society in Trinidad by becoming.
So maybe in school you can start a civic.
Yeah.
Good. So together with your teacher, you will help work that out. Yeah? Good. Yes.
Just say something referring to what the young man just said.
Yes.
I don't think that the government is the issue towards crime, because if ghetto youths educate themselves well enough to get a proper job, then the government will not have to be the cause of crime.
Yes.
And what else I'd like to say is that, well, for me and my school, I would like to start to put up posters and support the Project R.A.R.E. and inform. I don't think people are informed enough about the consequences of their actions. So we, for San Fernando Secondary School, I would like to, put up posters and say, well, something about forgiveness, like saying sorry a day would make a bigger change. Just small quotes that would encourage people to do better. Thank you.
What about at your assembly? I want to throw out a suggestion. At your assemblies, can you play this song, Ceasefire? Can you play it? Can you play it? Can you play it? Sometimes, can you remind people about it? Can you get your teachers and your house captains and your prefects and so on to come up at the assembly and maybe form a group and sing it? Come on, through music, through song. Popularize that song, Ceasefire. Popularize it, and you do some posters on Ceasefire. Let us see them, the symbols of it there. It might be shocking, but let us see it. Have a week where you promote it, okay? Yes,
Mrs. Elias,
yes.
Karen, I want to take this opportunity as Deputy Mayor. I'm also Chair of the Committee for Education and Youth Development. My assistant Leah is there and she's looking at me like she's going to take on something else now. Yes, I am. I want to start with these 4 schools. I'm going to throw out the option. This is January, Karen. Every quarter for the year, as the chairman of the committee, I give my promise that we can hold it here, we can find different venues to get you all together and have one, the civic society debates, sort of like what you sort of, that mini debate you had going there,
yes,
about violence, about crime, about youth and the issues that affect you. Also, those awareness groups that you talked about, I want to challenge each of you to start small, intimate meetings within your school that I give my commitment. I will attend with Ms. R.A.R.E, I'm sure, to come and let your students know. So we have a lunchtime meeting and we can come and tell them about that. I'd love to be a part of. My other commitment as well, we will have the civic society debates, but we can also do, let's say, this is January. After Easter, let's look at April, sometime in April. Within your schools, now this depends on you. I can have everything in place, but it's if you do the work. We will have a forum where we come and we have an open mic. So we get the kids together, you organize your people, we sit, you can come on the mic if you want to rap, if you want to sing, if you want to spoken word, if you want to monologue, whatever, if you just want to speak, whatever you want to do. So Karen, keep in touch with me and we can put the, Aliyah, take note of the 3 options and that's what I'm willing to do. That's my commitment to do.
Well, you see what has come out of this session today. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, for your high commitment to this. And I want to thank all of you for participating in this discussion. It was lively, it was informative, it was insightful. And don't forget, form the groups in your schools. Promote peace, love, forgiveness. Sing the ceasefire song. Get those assemblies going. Get the projects going. Get the awareness group going. And the Deputy Mayor is going to honor her commitment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Remember to give us the feedback form. And also there is going to be a pledge. There are pledges that have been distributed now. And we are hoping that you will sign, you would endorse them. And also there is an event certificate that Ms. R.A.R.E will be distributing now. And we're hoping to get everybody's signature on it as a symbol of your support for today's activity. So we just take a few minutes to do that, and then I will ask Ms. R.A.R.E to come with the vote of thanks. Prime News in Guyana, and she's also the first female elected president of the Guyana Press Association, which is an organization that's century old. Young person herself. Youngish.
My vote of thanks, but just before I started that, I had forgotten that I was supposed to issue, I'm starting a competition today, and the competition will run for the next 3 months. I was hoping more schools would be here, and it's for the representatives from the schools today to compile a video on the effects of gun violence and ways that we can combat gun violence. And you all came up with some good things today. So it's a short video clip, no more than 2 minutes long, which is kind of long still, say an hour, a minute and a half. Right? And it will be submitted to me. I will get the details to your schools. Right? So just keep that in your minds. So now for the last part that's very important, children. When I was small, I did not think that saying thanks was important. I knew it was important, but I didn't know how important it was. So I am just going to say thanks today because I'll just read this little quotation. We can only be said to be alive in those moments when our hearts are conscious of our treasures. And I'm feeling so very much alive today because I'm so thankful to all these people. I'm particularly thankful to the Deputy Mayor, both in her capacity as Deputy Mayor and in her capacity as the Chairman of the Education and Youth Development Committee. And also like to say thank you, special thank you to Mr. Gary Kalcharan of Pegasus Security Services Limited, because each one of the schools received a set of books, 3 books. Those were my books, and he is the person who sponsored those books. So we thank him for his philanthropic gesture. I'd like to tell Mr. Wesley Gibbings a special thank you, and to the fellow journalists, thank you for being here as well, for their selfless service. And also to Mr. Hollis Clifton for being here and recording the proceedings. And I hope to get a video of this after. Even if I have to pay for it, that's fine. I'd like to say thank you to Ms. Rosalind Elias, who is not in here yet. She's here for her benevolence and willingness. Beautiful smile also. Ms. Jemima Doyle, thank you very much. Soulful, willing, right? Very sweet and easy to work with. Ms. Catalina Nurse, above and beyond, thank you. You know where it comes from. I'd like to also say a special thank you to Ms. Anna Lewis, Mrs. Lynette Sananan, Ms. Beverly Ali, Mr. Bihari of Modsec, the famous Mr. Bihari, members of staff and the principals of all the schools and the teachers, all of them who attended today. And special thanks to the City Corporation for all their help, all members of staff who helped. And that more or less brings us to the end of thanks. If I left out anybody inadvertently, please forgive me, but still accept your thank yous. And to close us, in last final thing first, before we that was really just for the adults this time, but that's okay. We humbly come before you, Lord, asking for relief from the restlessness of this world. The burdens of internal and external conflicts are becoming too much for us to bear. We turn to you in these turbulent times. We pray that amidst the distractions of fighting, violence, and confusion among your people, your spirit of peace will descend on us and spread by the ripple effect to those around us. You alone are greater than any source of unrest in our lives. All glory, praise, and honor be to you. Thank you, everyone.